Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Show Up with Christine Chang podcast. Today we have May Bugenhagen on the podcast. She is a professional Asian matchmaker and dating coach. She helps men of all ethnicities. She links them up with Asian females, Asian partners. May, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. So good to be here,
Oh my
Christine.
Gosh, I have so many questions because the first thing that comes to mind, because you said men of all ethnicities. So I'm wondering, on average, what percentage of your men are not Asian?
I would say a very high percentage, probably 75% are not Asian who are looking for an Asian woman.
Because, I mean, my mind automatically goes to that stereotypical, there's
Yellow
nicknames for it.
fever.
Yellow fever, creepster, only likes Asian women. How do you feel about that?
Surprisingly, majority of the men who come to me, Asian or non-Asian, when they're open to dating Asian women, they also check the other boxes, meaning I'm okay meeting a Latina woman, a Caucasian woman, but their focus is they want me to search for Asian women. So maybe 80% of the matches they get are Asian women, but maybe 20% are non-Asian women for them.
Okay, but some people do check the box, only Asian
Yes,
women.
some people do. A lot of the Asian men might come to me that only want to date Asian women, and that's fine. If a Caucasian man comes to me and he only wants to date Asian women, that can be a little yellow feverish, but mostly I find out why they think that. But majority of them are still open to dating non-Asian women too.
Okay, why? Like, what have you heard when you've asked why, or when you've done more,
Yeah,
questioning?
well, it goes back to they want someone who has good family values, someone who values education, someone who's nice and kind, someone who doesn't mind doing chores around the house or cooking or cleaning, like the normal traditional duties of a woman, which they just want someone traditional. They want someone who's not so type A, someone who's not so aggressive because they think American women maybe are a little too aggressive. So just things like that. They just want nice, traditional, kind women.
You know what's funny was when you were saying that, and it's funny because I think I can be hard on white men or non-Asian men when they want to pursue an Asian female or have a preference. But when you said it's an Asian man and he said only Asian, I don't have a problem with that. And I think maybe I've been on the receiving end of too many where I felt like it was creepster or like, do you only like me because I'm Asian? Can you tell me apart from your ex? Like that sometimes was creepy to me. Do you get a lot of Jewish men?
Yes, I do get a lot of Jewish men when it's their second time around. So they might have married a Jewish woman already, had kids, raised kids Jewish, and now they're like, you know what? I want to date someone who I want to meet, and I want my second chapter to be with an Asian woman. So now they don't have to please their moms anymore. So now they can date whoever they want. So yeah, I do get a lot of men who come to me as their second chapter.
I used to photograph weddings, and a good chunk of them, it would be a Jewish man with an Asian woman. And to me, family values wise, it kind of makes sense because when I hear them speak and things like that, how they value education, the way they handle money, all of that, there are some similarities there. So to me, it makes sense that that would be a match.
Only if they are not so religious, I guess, or not so into their culture. Like they're okay if their first wife is Asian, because you're right. A lot of the Asian culture, Asian similarities with how they value education is very much, Jewish men love educated, smart women, and Asian women love men who are educated and smart, because that also signifies that if they're at least a graduate student or a BA student, that they'll get a good job. Like that means like they care about their education and want to be ambitious and provide for their family. So yeah. But when I was dating back in my 20s and 30s, I dated Jewish men. I thought, okay, I can marry a Jewish guy. But the Jewish men didn't want to marry me. They wanted to date me, but I knew that they weren't going to marry me for some reason. And I met some of his friends that would say, oh, yeah, he's dating you, but he's not going to marry you. So that was always in the back of my mind, like, oh, okay, I probably would date Jewish guys and Jewish guys like me, but they're not going to marry me because they need to marry someone Jewish to please their families.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's that similarity too with some traditional Asian families, right? And
Yeah.
South Asian families, they would like
Yeah.
for their kids to date same ethnicity, same race.
Right.
For anyone who's interested in possibly working with a matchmaker, who is the ideal candidate to hire a matchmaker?
Someone who values time more than money, because hiring a matchmaker is not cheap. It could be anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15, 25, 50,000. So it depends on someone who has that disposable income where they're like, you know what, I don't want to be putting my profile online and have my subordinates see me or my coworkers see me. So they want discreet and confidentiality. So that's when someone would hire a matchmaker. Someone would hire a matchmaker if they really want me to screen for the basic stuff. You know, someone who's educated, she really wants kids, you know, not someone who's just open. Because a lot of women put open on their online dating profiles so they can cast a wider net. But if they truly want to have kids, they should tell me that they really want to have kids, you know, so I could partner them up with someone who has the same key life values. So someone who should hire a matchmaker would be A, has the disposable income, B, is accomplished in their field, and they want me to find someone who's kind of what they want, right? Just give me 3 criteria and I'll search for that.
Are they all looking for someone to marry or a long-term relationship, or are some looking to date?
Long-term relationship or to get married for sure. I mean, you're not going to fork over 5, 10, 15, 25,000 just to date around. If you just want to date around, then go online dating. You know, there's so many people on there.
Do you ever meet people who hire you, but you can tell they're not emotionally ready to be in a
Yes.
long-term relationship? And what do you do in that scenario?
Oh, I would date coach them and talk to them and ask them questions to kind of get the answers. Because yes, you can fill out a profile and answer questions and just kind of tell me what I want to hear. But if I ask them, their tone changes, how they say things changes. When they tell me stories about their exes, I can really dig in deeper because that's the real connection, right? For me to talk to them and really ask them questions to have them reveal the truth.
Do you tell them the truth? Just say after all the questions and things like that, you're like, oh my God, this guy's clearly not ready. Like even if I put the most perfect partner in front of him, the relationship won't work based on how he's showing up. What do you say to them?
Yes, I ask them questions, and the way they answer it, they'll know that I know they're not ready. So I would, for example, there's this gentleman that is recently separated. And I don't know why, but guys, when they're separated, they're like ready to sign up with another matchmaker. Like they're ready to move on. And I'm like, don't you need to like figure this out? Like why your marriage didn't work out, find out, are you ready for another relationship? But a lot of times they just want to jump in because they feel like that's the quickest way to solve their problem, right? So I ask them questions. I'm like, well, we can kind of hold off on this. We can kind of spread it out, the time, you know, like let's take photos, but, you know, take a month to get the photos taken instead of next week. So just kind of help them space it out so they can work on themselves a little bit and talk it over with somebody. If they don't talk it over with me, like get a therapist, talk to your best friend, talk to your parents, talk to friends who are married and have had, you know, good relationships and long-term relationships. Like dig in with those people and they'll tell you the truth.
That's been a frustrating part, and I could be a little judgmental when I hear that because it can be frustrating. You know, we've all had friends who might have the same patterns, or it's easier to see from the outside, like man or woman, sometimes like, oh, like you're not ready, you know? But the jumping in to think that would fix something without doing the introspection, I don't think it's a wise thing to do. But I also have empathy for most men the way that they're raised. You know, they're not raised in a way to necessarily have the tools or the awareness to do that, right? Like, oh, maybe it's me. How did I contribute to this? What am I actually feeling right now? Where women, I think that occurs to us a little quicker.
Right. Well, I kind of thought that the reason why women live longer than men is because women have the outlets and the people around them to talk, to feel better, to get encouragement, but men don't get all that. Like they don't get buddies that tell them, "Oh, you're doing a great job. Like you're providing for your wife and your family so well." Like they don't get the encouragement. So maybe that's why women live longer. I don't know.
That's true. That's true. One time I did a personal growth workshop with he was a male relationship coach. I had it at my apartment at the time, and I remember afterwards the men were all in the kitchen jabbing with each other, talking about their exes, like you wouldn't believe my ex, but I could see how excited and almost like this desperation of I've been wanting to talk to people about this, but you know, they don't want to come off as lame or what, I don't know whatever reason why they don't talk about these things. But I've seen there's more men's groups and things popping up here and there. I mean, I live in LA, so maybe there's more of that here. But I think that's really needed. I think community for anybody. There's a lot of people who feel lonely now, especially with internet and social media. And I think having a community and being vulnerable with your community is one of the easiest ways to feel happier if anyone's in that space. Because I've been in that space recently too, after the pandemic. Certain values come up, change. You might grow apart from some friends and things like that. And just really remembering, instead of hardening, to stay vulnerable and the self-responsibility.
I think if a man reaches out and asks the questions about their relationships, their breakups, or just reaching out and talking to another buddy, that buddy would be open to talking about it. It's like they have to make the first move, you know, like they can meet men, church, have Bible studies, things like that, just being around other men, you know, once a month, once every 2 weeks, that's going to make them talk to them. So,
I agree, because once you open up, you give someone else permission to feel safe doing the same thing.
Right.
But I have also experienced, actually my husband he doesn't do it on purpose, but sometimes I say, I'm like, you're being dismissive right now. Because he's more practical, logical, you know, so it's just the way that they were brought up, and that it's a skill. I actually had to learn that too, being raised by Asian parents. They're not the most emotionally encouraging all the time, right? Like did you ever hear, I'm proud of you?
From my parents?
Yeah.
No. They actually would tend to tell other people how proud of my accomplishments, almost in a bragging way, than to tell me how great I am. Like my friends' parents would be like, "Oh yeah, your parents are really proud of you," da 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 da, from how they go on and on about you. But I'm like, "Oh, they never told me that." So you're right. Like it's not in our family to do that. But you know they're proud of you because they're bragging about you to all your, you know, your friends' parents and things like that. So
we hear the criticism. We hear the how it could have been better.
Right.
And it's all out of love. It took me a while to learn how my Asian parents show their love.
Yeah.
Everyone shows it differently.
Well, the very, very easy way is how they ask you, "Oh, it's like 6:00 when they call you and they're like, 'Oh, have you eaten?'" That was always the thing. They always ask if I've eaten. But if you put on the weight, they'll be like, "Oh, you could lose some weight." They'll tell you a little chubby. So yeah.
It's crazy talk sometimes, because the aunties grow up like, eat, 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 eat.
Right.
And you're fat. I'm like, what do you want? You're the one who's telling me to eat.
But I've noticed that I kind of push food on my husband now. So maybe that's kind of the love language I learned, is by offering him food and offering him, "Hey, have you eaten? Do you want me to make you a sandwich? You know, do you want me to heat something up for you?" So that's kind of what I learned from my parents. Like the way they are so trying to feed me all the time is kind of how I act toward my husband. I really think that's it.
Does he receive it well?
Yes, but I could tell sometimes he's like, I'm not hungry. Like, stop asking me. So then I like lay off, and then he's like, is the kitchen open? So then, I guess it goes both ways.
Well, you have the awareness
Yeah.
to listen and say,
Right.
okay, he's not hungry right now.
Right.
Versus I think sometimes our moms and aunties, sometimes I felt, I'm like, are you listening to me? I said, no, I'm literally not hungry. That's so funny. But I think it's a good relationship skill to have in general have you read The Love Languages? Such a good book. And just to know that people show their love in different ways. What's your love language of how you show?
Gifts. I love
That's number
receiving
one?
gifts, which is kind of the thing where I give my husband a lot of gifts. Like I buy stuff for him all the time at a store. When I go to Costco, when I go to any store, I'm always thinking of buying him something. And even when I come out to LA and I go back to Colorado, if I see something cute at the airport, I will buy it for him. So I've noticed that is my love language, and acts of service. That's my second one. Yeah.
And what about his?
His is physical touch. So
for a lot of men,
right,
that's-
physical touch is a big one, and acts of service. So yeah,
Nice.
isn't that interesting? Like kind of how you figure out how you want love to be expressed to you. I remember we've been together like 16 years, and I still remember the one time he went and bought me a taro boba drink by himself randomly. I didn't ask for it. And I still remember, oh my gosh, that's like the best drink ever. And it was such a small gesture, but I still remember that because that is my love language. For him to buy me a taro boba made me so happy.
Oh, I love that because it feels also thoughtful and they know you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which sometimes I feel personally my girlfriends get me a little easier. There's just certain things we understand about each other that it's almost unfair of me to have the expectation on like, a man or Pete's not going to be in my head about everything or his body doesn't work the same way as mine. But my girlfriends tend to know like what kind of boba to get or like less sugar, not too sweet, things like that. Where I've had to learn with my husband to be very specific in what I need and what I'm asking for. Because when I was younger, I would get mad and say, well, you should know. How did you not know? But if I don't articulate it and to be super specific, like if I want something done, can you do this right now? It's fair if I say right now. Because if someone asked me, I would do it right now because I have a sense of urgency. He's a little different. But to learn how to communicate is something I had to learn as an adult because growing up, I did not have good communication skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think if you ask for something that it's unfair. The men in your lives are not mind readers. Like, I don't know why women think that. Like, well, he should know. No, he shouldn't. Maybe if you ask for it 5 times or 3 times, yes,
fair.
he should know.
Yeah.
But that's how you kind of, lack of a better word, train your significant other, right? Like you're actually helping him or her by spelling out what you want and give direct clues.
When you're talking about the gifting and love language, I also like to buy thoughtful gifts for my husband, especially clothes. I don't know. Things just come up all the time. And eventually he told me, he said, hey, would you mind not buying me clothes? Because it reminds me of when my mom would always try to dress me as a kid, and I hated it. And I said, okay, but a part of me felt so bummed because I still see things. I'm like, he would look so handsome in this. But I don't want him to have that feeling, obviously. I don't want you to think of me as your mom. But adjusting to that and really hearing someone is also something that I've had to learn over the years.
Well, Christmas is coming up. What's one gift you're going to get him?
That's a good question. Actually, over the years, we kind of stopped gifting each other things. It's just, I guess it stops being a priority. But something did come to mind, and I completely forgot. This is in my 40s. Things just happen like this where I forget. But I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to get Pete this. Maybe it'll come to me by the end of the episode. But we never force it, though. It's never... no one takes it personal, like, what, you didn't give me a gift for my birthday or Christmas? It's just more organic. If we see something, and it could be throughout the year, I think we both operate better when things aren't forced. I never buy a good gift when I feel like crunched on time. I'm gonna find them something. Back to the dating. Okay, so these guys, they talk to you. They're paying you. Where do you find potential suitors?
Where do I find the women?
Yeah.
They find me. I've been
Oh,
doing this since 2009, so a lot of them register with me and fill out a profile with me.
okay.
So that way they're always in my database.
Do they have to pay you too?
No, the women join my database for free, so I encourage everybody to fill it out, and it's all private and confidential. And I usually ask the women first, like, hey, do you want to meet Joe? And if she says yes, then I prepare her profile, update it, interview her again if I need to, and then say, hey, Joe, would you like to meet Sarah? What do you think? So if they both say yes, then I actually set up the date. So I go on Yelp, look for a good place, what they want to do, if they like Italian or they like Chinese or Japanese, I find something mutual that they like, set it up, make the reservation, and then all they have to do is show up, look cute, and flirt. Like that's their only job is to enjoy the date.
Okay, so what type of women typically register with you? Is there a type or do you have across the board?
Across the board, but generally it's a woman who likes to be, maybe they don't like to do online dating. Maybe they heard about hiring a matchmaker, but they don't want to hire one. They just want to be in a matchmaker's Rolodex. Or maybe it's a friend of a friend that I set up and had good luck with, and now they want to give it a shot. But mainly, I'm just another resource for them. So I don't actively search for the women, but when a woman fills out a profile, I go through all of the guys that I'm looking for to see if she's a good match for him. So, and every time a guy signs up, if he's looking for someone like her, then her profile pops up. So then I can look at it and be like, oh, maybe they will hit it off, and then see if they want to meet each other. So, yeah.
So the men have a profile. When you present it to the women, and do you want to meet Joe? Is it a photo and then what he's looking for?
Yes. I don't do blind dates because I'm putting myself in their shoes. Like, I don't want to get it set up on a blind date. Like, I want to look at the photo and be like, oh, yeah, he's cute. Or look at the bio. I tell the women and the men exactly what they do for a living, where they live, do they want kids, what their key life values are, maybe some common interests. So that's why I encourage everyone who does online dating to just put their true information out there so it could help them weed out or weed in the people.
Save
So
time.
yeah, I know. Time is so precious.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I agree. I'm like, if someone can get scared off in the beginning, I'd rather scare them off. But actually that didn't come till later though, because it depends on the headspace that someone's in, right? I think it comes with age and maturing too, of being afraid to ask for what I truly wanted for fear of rejection. But I'm all about time now. I value my time a lot, as I'm sure a lot of the people who you work with value their time. Thanks for tuning into my podcast. I want to take a minute to talk about my favorite instant coffee company, Strong Coffee Company. There's a bunch of healthy ingredients inside like collagen, MCT oil, L-theanine, and neurofactor. So that means extreme focus, no crash, no jitters, and it's also instant. You just add water, so it's really, really quick. They have a few different flavors, but my personal favorite is this one. It is the cacao. The other ones are hazelnut, vanilla, and they have just regular like black drip coffee. If you're interested in giving them a try, use code Christine Chang at checkout for 15% off. I know, see, he likes it. You do not need to be bouncing off walls. Yeah, what you do by helping them pick a restaurant and set up the date is already so much help, because I think that takes a lot of energy to be, I think for men especially, or whoever's planning the date, because you hope the person's going to like it and all that. It does, for a busy person, takes up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So you really assist them.
Oh, yeah. It's very helpful because I'm going and say, hey, Sarah, when are your free days and time? Joe, when are your free days and times? And then I coordinate it. And then it's like, okay, they both like Italian. Okay, I'm going to set it up in between them. So he doesn't have to hop on the phone and be like, oh, when are you free? What kind of food do you like? Where should we meet? Like all that stuff, it just takes the pressure off for the guy. And all he has to do is show up. Like I made all the reservations. I send them both an email. I exchange phone numbers for them. I kind of give them a guide, like how they should act, because I tell them what kind of questions I'm going to be asking after the date. So hopefully they read it and they know to be on their best behavior, right? So it
What are
kind of
some
guides them.
things on that?
I would ask them, did you have a good conversation? How was the conversation? Was he upbeat? Was she upbeat? Did they put their phones away? Did you feel like you've been heard? Did it feel like you made good eye contact with him? How did he appear? Did you like the way she dressed? Like, do you want to see him or her again? Did you go ahead and set up the second date? Like, all those things. Like, if you like somebody, go ahead and ask them out again. If they want to see you again, hopefully they sincerely say yes or sincerely say no. But at least these are the questions I'm going to be asking. So try to be a good conversationalist. Like, try to be nice for 60 minutes, 90 minutes. Like, there's no reason why you can't be a decent human being for 60 minutes or 90 minutes, right?
Do you get anyone who you feel is not a good person?
Yes.
You do.
Yes. I've learned in the 14 years I've been doing this that if I interview them and do a consultation with them over the phone, if I don't like them, I'm not going to extend a membership to them. I don't want to work for someone I don't like. The whole reason that I wanted to be self-employed was to kind of do my own thing, right? Like, I don't want to be forced to help somebody who rubs me the wrong way. I'm not going to be able to sell them to the women properly.
Right. Do you interview the women on the phone beforehand?
Yes, and on Zoom, on the phone or on Zoom or in person. So it just depends on how I can get them.
Okay. When you are matching people together, what criteria do you base it off of? Is it values? Do you also take into account emotional intelligence?
All that. I go with what the guy wants because he's my client. So he's paying me to search for these things. So a lot of times it could be age range, what he wants, where she is geographically. Is she educated? Is she an introvert, extrovert? What kind of interests? I don't focus too much on the interest because I feel like people can share interest and get to know each other. That shouldn't be the reason why you date somebody. But of course, you want reasons to say yes. So we try to let the other party know everything about them. But yeah, all those things. I mean, religion is important, politics. Ever since, politics and COVID's come around, like all that stuff is important. Has she been vaccinated? If that's important to him, I would ask a lot of different questions. Like I ask the men, like, what do you want me to search for? Because you're hiring me for my time. So just use me. I'm like the middleman. I'm easy to ask. It's easy for me to ask her questions, right? Because on the first date, he's not going to be like, oh, Christine, do you want kids? But I've already asked you,
Yeah.
so I can tell him, you know what, scale of 1 to 10, she really wants kids. Like she wants at least 2. And then he could be like, okay, that could be off the table. I don't have to ask her about kids until maybe 3rd or 5th date. But he already knows the answer, but he can ask more questions about kids down the road.
What's the age range that men typically look for? Is it?
The younger, the better. Just kidding.
I know. Well, in general, I mean, depending on how old they are too,
Right.
right? But in general, if men have a choice, I'd say a good chunk of them, they prefer younger.
Yeah.
I mean, do any choose some when they're like 40 or over and they say they want 18
No.
to 25?
That's not my specialty. My specialty is more of men who want to date maybe their age or up to 10 or 15 years younger. So that is very doable and very normal, depending on if her parents have a huge age difference too, then that's more acceptable to her. So it just really depends. But I'm comfortable working with men who want to date their age to maybe 10 years younger.
So do you filter that out in the interview with them?
Yes. Yes.
Have you heard some say that they want 18 to 25 when they're 40, 50, 60 years old?
No.
Okay,
It depends. If I believe a woman who's 25 or older can make her own decisions, right? If they're 18, that's still really young. If they're 22, their brains haven't fully developed yet.
I agree.
Right.
I agree
Right.
100%. Not everyone thinks that. I put a few clips up on social media, and the amount of, it's usually men who thinks it's okay. She's an adult, 18, it's legal. She can make her own choice. Like, no, and I feel really strongly about that based on my own experience as well. I just think that the power dynamic and the life experience is just different when there's that gap. There's a naivety that comes with being under 25 that for me personally, some of my I wasn't even sure what my boundaries were. I was still learning them, where the other person knew what their boundaries were. So I felt that it can be an unfair advantage for the person who knows themselves better because they have the life experience.
Yeah. Well, I am 51, and I don't think I want to date a guy that's too old. Like 61 maybe if he's young, but I don't want to date a guy who's 70. So I don't want to take on a client who's 70 and wants to date 50 or under. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's just not relatable.
Right, right. It's harder for me. But don't get me wrong, there are a lot of Asian women out there. Maybe that's why they think that, well, I could get a young woman, because a lot of Asian women are maybe desperate and they want to come to the US and they want somebody who can support them. Yes, certainly there are that type of women, but you have to be prepared. If you are 70 years old and you want a woman who's in her 40s, she might be digging your gold, like that's just normal.
Yeah.
And you should be okay with that. And maybe you do have the lifestyle to provide her with that. But that's fine if that's what they want and that's what they're okay with. I mean, my job is to search for them. So I guess my job is not to judge them, but at least I know from experience, I can share what I know and, clue them in.
Absolutely. Different things for different people. And I think a marriage it's just the agreement of that, are both parties on the same page of what they get out of this. And there are some women who they just want someone who can pay for their lifestyle, and they just are pleasant and pretty and cute, and that's it, and it works for them. But similar to, I guess I personally don't understand that. I value freedom. Like, yeah, you do you, as long as you're not hurting anyone. You do you. I don't have really any friends like that, just because I think you tend to hang out with people who have similar values, right?
Yeah.
Okay, can we talk about your own personal relationship? Because I'm always curious about people and their personal lives, because I'm nosy. No, but I think it also helps because of the work you do. You said you're 51, and you said you met your husband later in life. How old were you when you met him?
Well, I met him when I was 36 and he was 26. So my husband is 10 years younger, which is very unique. I mean, in a sense, I don't meet a lot of women who have younger husbands, but for some reason it worked out well for us, where I guess he's really mature and I'm really immature. So I guess we kind of met in the middle, but that was interesting. I did not think that I would marry someone that much younger. I thought I would marry someone younger. I've always been into younger guys, but I'm also open to older guys. I've never been like, oh, I only want to date younger. So it just kind of happened that way. But yeah, I'm sure his parents were not a fan of, what are you doing with a 36-year-old, But yeah, we met at our old work. So we met each other that way. And it just kind of worked out. Like, we've been together 16 years. We've been married for 6 years.
I think work is if you work in an office setting, because you naturally just bond with the people who you see day in and day out.
Right.
For 40 hours a week.
Yeah. You really get to know someone because you're kind of forced to work with them, and you kind of are forced to see how they interact with other people, what their job ethic's like, what their work ethic is like. So you really learn about somebody, because don't you see people walking on the street and you're like, how did that guy get that hot girl? Because they worked together, they were thrown in the room together, and for whatever reason they bonded, or they liked someone's sense of humor or something like that. So that's why it's so important to give people a chance. It's like, just go out with them for 3 dates. You have nothing to lose but to figure out if they're really going to be a good husband to you, or a good father to your kids. Like, how do you know in 60 minutes if that person's going to be an amazing dad, you know?
Totally. I always give that advice too for people. Some people, they say they want a relationship, but I can tell, I'm like, you're not open. That's, I mean, number one, you have to be open
Right.
to be able to create that relationship and give someone a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with social media and everything's so quick now, it's like a many, like people, I think they write people off way too fast. And have you heard that saying, if you want to fall in love with someone, spend more time with them?
It's so true.
Isn't it?
It's really true. And I feel like if someone's going to be dating, it's okay to date like 2 or 3 guys at once.
I agree.
You know, you just compare and contrast. I'm not telling you to sleep with 3 of them, but by all means, it's okay to just get to know them and see if one of them piques your interest more than the other 2. I mean, you have to compare and contrast. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's practical. It could be triggering for some people when have given that advice. I was like, that's horrible advice. And I don't know, I'm not sure where that comes from. I just know for some people they say it's easier just to focus on one person. But for me, it actually helped me when I was dating because I was an anxious dater. And one of my guy friends, Jake, who is married, he knew me pretty well. He's like, you can come off kind of intense. He's like, have you ever thought about dating more than one person at once? So not all your eggs are in one basket. So your energy is kind of diffused. Practical advice. And it worked really well for me. I think for other people, I mean, do whatever works for you. But I view dating as, my mom always said this. She's like, it's like you're trying on clothes. Like some it's going to work, some's not. And that's all dating is.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's not realistic to just date one person if you're not exclusive. Like, how do you know if he's being exclusive with you? And did you have that talk yet? There's so many things that you can do to increase your odds, right? This is just increasing your odds at dating. And there's nothing wrong with it as long as you both know that, okay, we're dating, we're not exclusive. But the minute you sleep with somebody, hopefully that means more and you do become exclusive. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so your husband, when you met, you said his parents were not happy about it? Or just more questioning, like,
I'm sure they were just thinking, like, well, you're 26, what are you doing with a 36-year-old? So I'm sure that played into it. And I'm sure his parents wanted him to have kids. So they probably thought, okay, well, why don't you meet someone more your own age? But, now that I've known them for, 16 years, I mean, they're great in-laws. They love me. They've accepted us that we're not going to have kids. So, but now it's way different. But before, I'm sure his parents were like, what are you doing?
I think that would be natural. I'm thinking if I had kids, I might ask the same question.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like, are you sure, like, this is what you want?
Even 5 years is a big difference for some people, right? Let alone 10. And traditionally, it's women date a guy who's older, not the other way around. And I'm sure even men today, I work with some men that are like, okay, I'm 36. I only want to date someone younger than me. Even 1 year older, they sometimes reject the woman. So age still matters to some people.
My only personal sensitivity is when the woman is below 25 and the gap is 10 years or more. That I think my protective mode comes on, almost like an auntie or mom. Like, are you okay?
Right. Yeah.
Did you always want to get married?
I always knew I would get married, but I was never one of those women. Well, when I was 25 or whatever, I thought I would have kids. I thought, I would have 4 kids by the time I was 25. But as I was going through my career, I realized I don't really need to have kids. And then it kind of I just thought, well, if I really wanted kids, I probably would have had them or seeked it out. So I didn't really care to have kids. But yeah.
Were you always on the same page with your husband about that?
Yeah, we were both very open. Like, okay, of course, if I got pregnant by accident, I would totally have the baby, but it wasn't like something we were shooting for. Like, oh, should we try to make babies now? So, yeah. Yeah.
We're similar. We feel the same way. I think the answer is no, but like you said, if I were to accidentally get pregnant, we
Yeah.
would keep the
Right.
baby. But it's not something that we strive
Yeah.
for.
I'm barely a good aunt. It's like I love kids. I mean, would it be great if I was in my 60s or 70s and you have family get-togethers and stuff? Maybe, yeah, but yeah, never really had the total desire to have kids. And now I meet a lot of women that are like open, like they're not
Attached to the
yeah,
idea.
exactly.
Are your parents pretty traditional Asian?
Actually, no, they never pushed me to get married, never said, "Oh, you should have kids." My mom never really questioned who I was dating. Like if I brought a guy home, then they would meet him, but they would never be like, "When are you getting married?" Like, yeah, I guess they were pretty non-traditional that way. Surprisingly, because, I'm first generation, so
Right. Where are they
yeah.
born and raised?
My dad passed away, but he was from China, born and raised in China, and my mom, same. So Hong Kong area, like that. But they never were like, "When are you having kids? When are you?"
Do you have siblings?
Yes,
Do,
yes,
do they have kids?
yes. My sister has a boy. My brother has 2 daughters. So I guess there's grandchildren in my mom's life and stuff.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
takes the pressure
They
off
they
too.
like spoiling the grandkids,
They do.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Because
different.
because now, my mom has the disposable income for it. But back when we were little, they grew up pretty, we grew up pretty poor. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like there was a ton of disposable income. But now, as grandparents, my mom is, yeah, she's fine financially to spoil the kids. So yeah, it all works out.
It's funny how the younger generation, I have a niece and nephew as well, 7 and 10. I think they're great kids, but
Yeah.
I'm like, you're so spoiled
Oh
with
yeah.
what you
Oh yeah.
get. They
Yeah.
get a lot of stuff and they see what their friends have. And I mean, I thought we had a good amount of toys and like entertainment growing up with them. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes if I'm like, is this doing you guys any favors? I feel like very few things are excite them.
Because they have so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
desensitized,
Mhm.
right? And I think the social media plays into that because they've seen everything. Like, oh, I've seen that Lego set before.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen,
Yeah.
this. I know this ride. I saw like the YouTube
Yeah.
video. I'm like, things are special anymore. I'm curious how that plays out when they get older.
Well, hopefully they appreciate what they have because that's my fear is my nieces would just be spoiled brats. Like I don't want them to be, bitchy little snotty kids. I
Oh,
want them
totally.
to appreciate.
I think,
So,
yeah, well, that's a life skill in general. I mean, I have to do a lot of work to stay grateful as well. I think it's easier to fall into spirals. Yesterday, I was looking up some news stuff. My dad's office actually got robbed in the Bay Area, and that kind of I was so pissed, and California's just politically been kind of, we're not going to go into politics, but I was just like, negative stuff. And I really have to make a strong effort when I get in those spaces to gratitude journal or write
mhm.
down, and just stop and reflect. Everyone in my life that I love is healthy. That
Mhm.
alone is a great day. And, overall, we do feel safe. That alone is great. And when you're in a relationship, when you're married, I think anyone, if you want to look for bad stuff, you could find it,
Right.
right? You want to be ungrateful. That's really easy. But to practice being grateful
Yeah.
and seeing the positive in things, I really think that's what keeps a lot of relationships going
Yeah.
is is the ability to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, my husband and I were both very grateful for where we are, financially, health-wise, all this stuff. I mean, we just had a dog that passed away like 3 weeks ago, and it's been like the hardest thing because we don't have kids. So he was our kid. And that's been like the most challenging thing for us in a long, long time. So we're very, very grateful for everything. And of course, we have another dog too. So now all the attention goes to the second dog. But yeah, it's easy to find stuff you're grateful for when you're looking for it.
Yeah.
And when you're just whining about the bad stuff in your life, you're like, well, it could be a lot worse, right? Because any bad situation could be a lot worse. Like your dad's place got robbed. It could have been a lot worse if he was there or he got,
Or
hurt,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, just kind of, you have to find it sometimes.
Before you met your husband, what was dating like for you?
Well, the reason how I got into matchmaking is because I did sign up for a matchmaking service when I turned 30. I'm like, well, I'm cute. I'm normal. I work out and stuff. I have a good job. I just bought a house. Like, what's wrong with me? Kind of like the question you ask in your book. Like, what's wrong with me? So I signed up for a matchmaking service. So I was really focused on trying to find somebody, right?
Mhm.
But that matchmaking service was so bad that I'm like, I could do this better than them. And that's what led me to start my own dating service. But dating back then was hard because I didn't want to put my information online because all of my subordinates were online. They could
Mm.
see me. They don't want to see their boss on
Mhm.
match.com and start winking at me or something. So I knew I didn't want to be online. So I didn't do online dating, but I did sign up for a matchmaking service, but then they were horrible.
How were they horrible?
They were horrible in the sense that they just basically saw you and they ran your credit to see if you can afford them. And they did the hardcore sales and they would just sell me a package. And then after that, I never talked to them.
Wow.
So I felt like, wow, they just totally sold me and just didn't even handhold and care about me. So that's why when I started my business, I thought, well, the people who come to me need a little bit of hand holding. They need a little bit of pushing and prodding. And so that's kind of how I based my business on, is how I felt when I signed up and how I could be different than them. So yeah, dating was tough back then. I mean, you meet great people because I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car and they hired all college graduates, right? They hired all good-looking people, I felt like, people who are outgoing, who can sell.
Mhm.
So I was around a lot of great people, but you're not supposed to date in the company. It's frowned upon. So they don't want you, you know, swimming in the company pool.
Mhm.
So yeah, dating was tough back then. You just have to try to meet people organically, but I'm working 60 hours a week, so I wasn't meeting anybody organically. But knowing what I know now, if I were to talk to my 30-year-old self,
Mhm.
I'd be like, you know what? Host parties, make your friend bring a friend of the opposite sex, and focus on those things and ask your friends, hey, if you have a singles party or a regular dinner party, will you just invite me?
Mhm.
Just be open to really going out. And when people ask you to do stuff, just say yes. Try to be out socially twice a week, make a point of it.
Mhm.
And what I really like, if I were to advise young people now, is that if they're single, sign up for something that interests them, whether it's a cooking class or it's pickleball or it's going to church. If you really want to find someone who's Christian or Jewish or whatever, go to church or temple and make a point of volunteering, do extracurricular activities, and just let people know that you're single and you're open to being set up
Mhm.
if they meet these 3 criteria. That's the only list you can have, is up to 3 things. Not 5, not 7, not 10 things. Like, some of the women come to me and they give me like this whole checklist and I'm like, "You've been dating 15 years and you can't find this. How do you expect me to?"
Right?
Right?
That's a
So, yeah.
fantastic point because there is truth to that. I think some women get defensive because there's with the whole women's empowerment. I deserve, more than this, but also being realistic. One of focus on how you're showing up.
Mhm.
But I do hear from a lot of men, they say a lot of modern women, they have unrealistic expectations.
Because the media or influencers are telling the women that they deserve this.
I mean, it goes both ways. There can be entitled people, man or woman, or it can go both ways. I like your advice, focus on 3 things. So those 3 things, because I've also with the lists heard some ridiculous things that don't matter in the I mean, I shouldn't judge and say they're ridiculous, but superficial, like are those things really going to matter in the long run? If you're looking for someone long term, they'll say like, "Oh, he's just starting to bald or he looks old." I said, "You're aging too, and if you want to get married or you're looking for long term, all of us, all our looks are going to change, okay? So it's going to be have to be something that you accept. Should you be attracted to them? Yes, but maybe just opening that like the reality of being with someone for decades,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you're both going to change. So what for those 3 things, what do you advise? In what realm would you say? Like what are some examples of healthy like top 3 things to look for?
Well, I get it. If someone wants to find someone the same faith, yes, that's important. That could really be a strong key life value for 2 people. It could be something with geographical location, if that's important to you. If you really don't think you could do long distance,
Mhm.
then yeah, I only want to date someone in LA, but LA is pretty big.
Mm.
Are you open to dating somebody an hour drive, or can you open it up to 2 hours? If you're sick of everybody in LA, then you got to open it up to San Francisco or San Diego or
Mhm.
Ventura or Santa Barbara. Open it up. Be realistic and just try. It doesn't hurt to try. You just never know, right? Age range, if a woman's like, I only want to date a guy that's my age or maybe, 3 years older, it's like, well, can you stretch to 10 years older
Mhm.
and have a hard stop at 10? That's realistic. And maybe 5 years younger,
Mhm.
so you have that 15-year age difference. That's fine. Height, like if you're stuck on a guy who's 6'0" and you're 5'6", will you date a guy who's maybe just 3 inches taller?
Mhm.
Because no one has ever said, my husband is so great, he's such a good father to the kids because he's tall. Like no one, right?
No one.
So like height doesn't really matter, and if you want to wear heels, that's fine. You can look like a supermodel next to your man. It's totally fine. Or just wear flats. Like who cares? Like I mean, you need to be attracted to him. I get it. So just be open, even though we say that a lot. Give the guy a chance. 3 dates, first date, you're like both awkward and you're both nervous or you don't know what to expect. You're rushing to the date because you're afraid you're going to be late and you couldn't find parking. So you're all frazzled. But the second date, at least, you know what he looks like now. So you can relax,
Mhm.
make a point of showing up early on a date, not just right at, the time that you're supposed to meet. Just be relaxed, not be rushed. So little things like that you could change about your love life.
Sounds like you teach people manners and etiquette.
That's so important because
It
we kind of got
is.
away from it, haven't we?
Traditionally,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, I'm big on etiquette.
Mhm.
My mom was good with teaching us some things of how, because she was a businesswoman, so professionally how to speak on the phone, things
Mhm.
like that. But there was some other things that I sought out after I became an adult, because etiquette is basically making other people feel
Mhm.
comfortable, right? That's basically what etiquette is, and I think it's just it's considering others.
It's respect, right? If you show up
Yes.
on a date and you're late and that guy's been waiting 20 minutes and you really like him, he's going to be like, wow, is she always late? Do I want to be with someone who's always late? Just basic etiquette, like you said. It's just consideration. And if you are late, I get it, traffic and all that. You really need to apologize and you
Yes.
really need to be, like you mean it.
Yes.
And you could be like, oh my gosh, can I make it up to you somehow? Or whatever that may be.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm big on time. It's actually one of my
Yeah.
pet peeves because I value my time a lot
Yeah.
and I value just do what you say you're gonna
Mhm.
do. If you can't be there at 7, then say like, "Oh, it might be rushed for me 8," so I can prepare, because
Right.
I just think if I'm sitting around waiting for someone and it's habitual all the time, what I could be doing something else. Like I have
Yeah.
better things to do than sit and wait for you. So that I have a hard time understanding. But I think it's understanding everyone's human and maybe they're not good in this area of life. But I think having the genuine like remorse that they
Mhm.
care, like instead of what's the big deal? What's
Yeah.
like things happen. I'm like, no, I'm telling you this is
Yeah.
important to me. And I think if we don't share that same value, I actually can't have them close in my life. At first, I thought, like, is this too rigid of a boundary? But for my immediate circle, that consideration and genuinely caring about something that's important to me, I realized is my boundary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for example, we're talking about dating 2 or 3 people at the same time, right? What if that guy is dating 2 or 3 women at the same time? You're a person who's always running late. There's another person who's kinda like you, but she's never running late. She's very appreciative of dinner or the drinks, and she texts him to say thank you and texts him because she appreciates it. Like, those things stand out, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's you never know. You just never know.
Absolutely. I wonder if that's, do you think it's our Asian background that like, that excellence? To me,
Yeah.
it feels good is how I brought up. It's normal, right? For other I think it shows, for example, just being on time. It shows that you care.
Mhm.
And I try to flip it around for, because I've heard some women say like, "Oh my God, dating is like it feels like another job, and I have to do this and that." I said, "Imagine if you show up on a date and the other person has that kind of energy. Would you be drawn to it,
Right.
or would you be drawn to someone who's kind of excited and curious
Mhm.
and optimistic?" So think about that before, instead of
Yeah.
going into it, with that kind of like cynical
Right.
energy.
If you go into a date with that cynical energy, you should actually maybe take a break from dating for a while and then get excited about it, right? So there are ways to help with that. So
Yeah, what's some advice or tips you have of how someone can change their mindset to become more excited and optimistic when it comes to dating?
I'm addicted to YouTube videos right now. So you can just Google anything on YouTube, right? Like positive mindset and just Google that and then watch someone give a speech on it or talk about it and you're going to learn from it. So I'm big on finding everything on YouTube. I love YouTube.
I
Like you
love
could
it.
learn anything on YouTube. And whatever thing you need to focus on or change or want to research, you can find it on YouTube. So yeah, that would be my big advice right now is like whatever you want to change, positive mindset about dating, Google that and then watch that video and see if it rubs off on you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I agree. I'm a YouTube person too.
Yeah.
Some people are never like not on YouTube at all. And it's so weird because that's my
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
YouTube. But this information is free,
Mhm.
which I think is amazing because a lot of people like therapy can be really expensive.
Yeah.
There's some fantastic therapists
Yeah.
that give amazing advice on YouTube.
Mhm.
And I mean, the downside to it is anyone can make a video. So you might not resonate with
Right.
everything, right?
Right.
Or if it's someone, really young, like 20 and she's a life coach, I might want someone with more life
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But I think, you sift through it, but I'm all about that too.
But you can just see how many views a video has gotten or comments and things like that. And I love reading about comments on a certain topic because you can have some insight on what other people are thinking or asking. And yeah, it's great. Wealth of knowledge on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any last pieces of advice for people who are dating who would like to meet their life partner?
Aside from all the dating tips I've given, I just want people to say yes to a date more than no. For example, if someone's asking you out, say yes more than no, right? Like there's no reason why you're rejecting somebody unless they're totally someone you would not meet. But I know we hear it all the times like be open, but say yes to a second date more than you would say no and just go with it. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to go on a date except maybe your time. You already have the outfits and
Mhm.
it's good date practice. Like how are you going to show up to be the best person you can be if you're normally not a good dater. You know, you need all this practice so when you do have that right person in front of you, you know how to act, know how to be, know how to show up on time, you know, and self-correct yourself. If you're always late, try to be early more than you are late. Like way early is fine. Then you just sit in your car and you're like texting anyway or finding parking spot or, you know, there's so much we can do on our phones when we're early that you can kill time and still make a good impression on somebody. So,
Awesome. Thank
yeah.
you so much for coming on and sharing more about your business. I know a lot of people they're curious about hiring a matchmaker. If people would like to reach out to you or send you a DM, where can they do that?
They can find me on May at twoasianmatchmakers.com. Email me. They can find me on Instagram under Matchmaker May. They can find me on Facebook under Matchmaker May. So TikTok.
I'll put
Yeah,
everything. I'll put
yeah.
everything in the comments.
Yeah. And I would love for women to register with me and fill out a profile. That way I can find them and be in my Rolodex. So if there's a great guy looking for them, I can reach out to them. I'm just a resource for them. Doesn't cost women anything. And of course, men, if they want to hire a matchmaker, contact me at Two Asian Matchmakers and I can help them.
And they could be located anywhere in the US.
Located anywhere in the US. I can help men and women that way. And even if I don't have a man looking for the women, I work with like 500 other matchmakers that are always asking me if I have somebody for their clients. So she might be a good fit for them as well. So yeah, thank you.